What do I make of the state of Eve in Master Plus? To be honest, I don't really focus on the state of characters in Master Plus. That is a very small subset of the community, and so, and also incredibly optimized, meaning that like it's fairly just unrealistic to ensure that every single character is in a perfect state for that area. Now that said, there are characters we balance around it, like say characters like QIYANA and RENGAR, but generally if some character is not very good in Master Plus, it's usually not the right decision to like force them to be good there because of how the game is optimized up there. The thing I would say about a character like Eve in Master Plus is we have nerfed her a lot. We have nerfed her items a lot. So Eve specifically might just be in a really bad state because of all the nerfs she's received. Don't know, not saying that's true, but it could be true. And then additionally, you've heard this from me many times on this stream, I personally feel like assassins, especially AP assassins who aren't LeBlanc, might be struggling right now to be effective. And I don't think Eve is an exception. So if I was to say, why might Eve be weak in Master Plus, aside from the nerfs we've done to her, my initial take would be, I wonder if, I would say, I wonder if just in general are assassins and AP assassins weak in Master Plus. Like, EKKO's falling off right now. Eve's falling off right now. I don't know how well Diana does up there, right? Although she's more of a bruiser, right? Like, there's a lot of AP assassin characters that are, like, kind of at their all-time lows for play rate at the moment. And to me, that would probably indicate that there's something going on with their ability to do their jobs. Those would be, you know, some of the ways I'm thinking about it. Is there a way to give RIVEN Sustain and a way to deal with tanks without making her too broken? Black Cleaver and Revenus Hydra feels so underwhelming. If Black Cleaver is not effective for dealing with tanks on a character like Riven, which it probably isn't because she doesn't want health, I think the question to ask is there a missing piece of the item puzzle now that there is no AD armor pen option in the system? Like pure AD, pure armor pen. League, for the entirety history of its existence, has had a AD armor pen option that currently does not exist because you either have to get AD lethality, AD health, or AD crit. And it's possible that that's leaving the character out to dry. So the question then would be, do we need an item like that, or should Riven herself be changed to account for the fact that an item like that doesn't exist for the time being? Those are the things to think about there. Riven as a jungler? I mean, she could probably jungle. I think one thing to think about with Riven, though, is like, is that what Riven players want? It feels like one of the things Riven players would kind of want is trolling on their lane opponents. Like, Riven is kind of a character who wants to like be this like high skill fantasy character who pops off, snowballs in lane, beats the crap out of her opponent. Whether or not that's possible right now is like an open question, right? I think a lot of Riven players have been talking about recently where she's not really a lane bully anymore and doesn't really have an ability to snowball out a game. And so, yeah, we could let her jungle, but I don't know if jungling is exactly what her player base is interested in doing, is the thing to think about there. Why are Ionian boots getting nerfed with 1k more gold and 3 less summoner haste? The boots already lost 5 haste. We are nerfing the boots across the board, for the most part. The decision is that boots are too good and too efficient, meaning that it's just a really strong power spike, and so we are just making them all worse at that. We're making the boot slot worse, and so everything's getting nerfed. My one sad part about doing this, I think the idea is generally good, by the way. I think most of the changes are really good, but I think the class that this affects the most actually is supports in a pretty bad way, where supports need cheaper boots to like because they need cheap items. And so the current changes make it so basically supports don't really have, you know, 900 gold boot options anymore, which I think the long term is going to mean supports feel a bit worse because they're just going to have a hard time getting getting items. I think they do have the one option of the mobility boots, but that just doesn't feel good for all of them. That said, though, if that ends up actually being a problem, we can always adjust it, right? Like, maybe long-term support items are supposed to give an extra 100 gold to account for the fact that, you know, their boots are more expensive. Who knows? So we'll see how it pans out for supports, but overall I think the changes are generally pretty good, and we're basically just squishing the boot slot a bit, making it less optimal and strong. XAYAH's release and design? I think XAYAH's great. I think XAYAH suffers from being good in pro play, as does Rakan, which means that it's very hard to make them an actual, like, it means it's hard to, like, make their couple nature as real as it could be, unfortunately. I think that's the big sad part about XAYAH, to be honest, is her and Rakan don't get to feel as realistic as of a pair as I think we would have liked in the long term, and that's a direct result of balancing them for pro play. To then further expand on that, I think then, like, so why is that? Why do they have to be balanced for pro play? Well, Rakan's an incredibly mobile support that's very pro-bound, and XAYAH's ultimate at the end of the day is a very pro-bound spell. Having something that says, I'm the AD carry, and if what you care about right now is the AD carry not dying, I can ensure that never happens, is a very, very, very powerful output. And we put it on her purely because of the desire for uniqueness. Like, that was the main reason we did that. One of the main goals we had in design over those years was it was very important that every character like do something like very unique, and so XAYAH being like, and I'm the AD carry who can avoid assassins because I have this ultimate, was a pretty unique thing to give her. And so yeah, I think what's one thing that's a little rough for XAYAH over the long term is the pro tilt of her kit in regards to how she works with the Rakan. It's not a problem currently. Well, that's because we made it not a problem by making them a lot weaker together, right? Maybe we could buff it again. Like, maybe we could improve that, but yeah. I think there was this thing that happened in game design a few years ago, which I think in the long term was like, not a few years ago, this was like over a decade ago. And I think in the long term it was kind of incorrect. And it was this thing where it's like, a lot of devs were like, hey, why would we create complicated skill trees for a game when players are just going to solve the skill tree and just go look up a build online? We think about this a lot in League of Legends, actually. It's like, why players in League don't make rune choices, right? They just auto-select their runes 99% of the time, right? And so it's like, why make a skill tree when people are just going to go solve it and then go look it up online? But at the same time, a non-choice that feels like a choice can still be incredibly compelling. The idea that your build is solved, but you chose to solve it is fun, right? The idea that you have all these things you can do, and here's what you chose to do, even if it was somewhat solved, that's fun. That's exciting. And so I think years ago, the games industry had a bit of a tilt towards just kind of automate all the choices for everybody because they're just gonna look it up on a guide online anyways. And it's like, well, yeah, but even the act of looking something up on a guide is a choice, is like an interesting input into the skill tree to some degree. Just because every player isn't making the choices doesn't mean that there's not interesting things potentially to be had there.